Freddy Ferocious back at it again for another bombing science video tutorial. This time we're going to be talking about tricks of the trade. These are graffiti trade secrets that has taken a lot of writers a long time to figure out, but I'm going to teach you a few of them in a couple short minutes. Now let's get to it. One of the most popular ones is the can stomp. This gives you some extra pressure and extra spray from your can, even though when you think it's done. When you start whatever, whether it's a straight letter, a bomb, a piece, or something of that nature, you might think you run out of paint. So I'm going to start something here and show you just what you can do in order to keep the paint running and give you that last little bit of spray. Now, as you can tell, I was doing a dustier film than I normally do, and it looks as if I'm running out of paint. But I think I can get just a little bit more. And by doing that, I'm going to stomp on the can, and it's going to get that last little bit of pressure that I need. Now, there's a couple ways of doing it. I generally like to flip the can upside down and stomp it with the top of it at the bottom. I find this helps really get the maximum pressure out of it. Also, the bottom of the can tends to be a little bit sturdier. So if you do it with the right side up, it doesn't really give it that press that you really need. This tends to be a softer part of the can and will really help compact the can as well as you need it. But that's not the only way to do it. You can also do it on its side. This is a lot easier because the can's a lot softer on this side. However, because it's so soft, it lends itself to being a lot more dangerous and being able to puncture it with things like rocks, sharp sticks, or caps that are laying around on the ground. Now, let me do it my way, and then we'll try and fill in the rest of this piece with whatever's left in the can that we thought we didn't have. What's important to remember is when you're doing it this way, with the can being flipped upside down, it's going to be relatively unbalanced. So I like to find a nice, flat, and level surface that has no obstructions, such as mud, dirt, or other types of grime that can get inside the valve and clog it. So I like to flip it over, have it evenly dispersed with this center of balance, and then stand over top. Make sure you have really good shoes because you don't want to ruin your heel or the bottom of your foot. And then I take it and I stomp on the can. And I notice that it's not quite as stomped as I want it to be. So I'm going to stomp again. Now if you notice here, it's really stomped in, and it's almost as if it compressed the air a little bit more, and it's going to give a little bit more pigment. That's what we need. So now that I've stomped the can, I've got that little bit extra of the pressure that I need. That'll get me some extra pigment going onto the wall in order to fill up as much as I can with the rest of this can. So I'm going to get to spraying and see if I can manage to fill up the rest of this throw up, similar to how I've done it all the way along, getting in my b-boy stance or my hip-hop stance and trying to get whatever's left inside the first outlines. So as you've noticed, I got a little bit extra out. Not that much, but that last little bit that managed to finish off this letter and got me into this letter. So now I'll just grab another can, quickly finish that up, and do my outline, and I'll be on my way. So if you notice here, I got an unwanted drip, and I'm not going to go back and cut this out because this is just a throw up. Sometimes drips can look pretty nice on this. It shows the fastness, and depending on how baked the spot is, it shows that you really did a lot of work real quickly to make something real dope on a heat spot. Now, a quick way of cutting back, not really cutting back, but trying to prevent more and more problems with drips or things of that nature, is giving it a blow, and this up in an upward direction to make the drips almost meet themselves back where it started. So that's a quick way of preventing it going even further, even though we've got a little bit of incorrect lines right here. So let me just finish off the rest of the throw up and we'll keep going. So now, in order to keep moving on these videos and give ourselves a clean slate on the garage, I'm going to take some primer and try to buff it all out. but I've noticed that there's not too much primer left. But that's no worry, we're going to figure out a way to extend this as far as humanly possible. Now, I'm going to start to buff the rest of this stuff now, and then we're going to get into how you can continue on buffing with some extra techniques.
Yeah.
Now, I ended up getting pretty far through what I wanted to do, but there's still a little bit at the bottom left. So I'm going to do a little trick here to extend this buff a little bit further. I got a little tiny bit left in the tray, but I want to keep that going a little bit longer, or as much as I possibly can. Now, it's good that this is a gray color because this is very neutral, but generally we try to do something with a very, very light or translucent color to fill up the rest of the tray, such as water. Also, if you're out drinking, you might have some beers around, maybe a beer. It's relatively diluted and it's kind of watery in its core, so it's not going to affect the color too much. But also, if you don't have access to this, and maybe you've been drinking a little bit or had too much coffee that day, you got to do what you got to do. So if you notice, we didn't really have the resources such as water or other liquids in order to put into the tray to make the primer last a little bit longer. I had to put a little bit of part of myself into it, which is also really good because it adds that little bit of uniqueness to the wall. So now, with diluting the paint a little bit more, I'm going to roll a little bit more onto the handle and see if I can finish off the rest of the buff job. Let's see how it goes. So if you notice, what I've just done there is I added a little bit of liquid to the tray and I got through the rest of the wall. This ended up diluting the paint quite a little bit more, so you got to watch out because it will give you drips and sometimes it's a little bit more translucent, so you might have to go over the spot a couple times. However, this actually diluted the paint to making it a little bit easier to manage, a little less stiff, and it definitely extended the buff as far as we want it to go. Now, another quick trick that pertains to the buffing element or getting more out of your roller or more height out of your roller is utilizing the area or your surroundings to your advantage. Now, in doing so, I've noticed that this is a relatively small wall, so we can almost hit everything. But sometimes when it's a little bit higher, we might get that extra reach that we can't do with just the handle and our arms. So if you look around, generally if you're in a forest, maybe in an abandoned place, or sometimes even in alleyways, you'll find some extra little materials such as tree branches, old rakes, old brooms, or something like that that you can shove in the handle and get that extra little bit. In this case, we found a nice little stick, and that's going to be able to give us that extra bit of reach if we need to go even higher. And notice how that gave us that last little bit of reach in order to get some extra space buffed at the top. Now, this is a relatively small stick and also not very thick, but if you find one in your surroundings that is thicker and much longer, then you can really go high. And this will help you get bigger letters, bigger background, or just buff the spot properly. So always keep a lookout and keep an eye out for anything that may help you wherever you're painting. So another thing we're going to be talking about now is gloves. Gloves are very important in the graffiti game for a number of reasons. Not only do they keep your hands warm, but they keep your hands protected from the actual spray of the can. That being said, if you're out bombing or doing pieces probably illegally, you want to protect your skin and your fingers from the actual sprays, just in case you get stopped by a hero, a cop, or anybody else, maybe even your parents, to say, "What were you doing?" If you have gloves, they help shade or protect all the sprays going onto your fingers, and then once you've done spray painting, take off the gloves and there's nothing on them, because that means once you get stopped, it's like you didn't even do it at all. Furthermore, Gloves do help your hands remain warm in days that are very cold or windy. Now, another really important trick that you can use is hand warming packets. Now, these you can get at almost any hardware store, and they can act as a buffer in between your can and your hand in order to keep your palms and sort of the surrounding area and can warm. Because sometimes in cold weather, it ruins the can by making the pressure a little bit altered or even stop the pressure altogether. This will clog caps or not even have the paint come out. So you want to maintain a generally pretty good level of temperature at all time. Also, when you spray the can, it comes out at a lower point or a lower degree pressure point than the room or general temperature. I'm not sure the exact science of it all because I'm not going to get into that, but it more or less comes down from about 5 or 10 degrees lower than the outside air temperature. So that being said, if you're spraying at -10 or -20, that's Celsius, it might come out even 5 or 10 degrees lower, being -30 or so. So you want to use these warm packets in order to heat up your hands and heat up your can so you're not freezing your hands or your fingers off. Now, the hand warmers come in something a lot like this. They come out in packages of 2 or even more if you want to buy in bulk. Now, once you get it, you open up the packet and you get these little sort of white packets. These ones you don't even need to shake or flick or anything for them to stay nice and hot. They just need to hit the outside air in order for you to have a little bit of extra warmth. Now, a good thing to do is to take the packet and put it in to your glove and cover it up so it remains hot and sturdy in your hand. Now, I really feel the heat touching my hand right now. Then, when you grab your can and you have it next to each other, your palm is almost completely warm, or even too warm in a way, and your fingers are getting a little bit of that heat as well, and so is the side of the can, in order to keep it nice and warm and bring the temperature down when it's too cold outside. Unfortunately, today is not a day that we need this, so we'll just put this away for now. Now, another thing that's really important to remember is to clear your caps, especially when you're done using them, but even at the start. This can really help with the pressure of the can, but also clear the cap of any potential gunk or buildup, which will make it clog or make the stream come out a lot less accurate and opaque as you want. The simple way to do this is just as we discussed in the opening video with can control, and that's to grab the can, flip it upside down, and spray. If you notice, the red paint came out and then it went to an almost clear or just aerosol element which didn't have any pigment in it whatsoever. This is a good sign. Now, I only held it for a couple seconds, but you can even hold it as long as you want or until the pressure dies out of the can. This almost ensures that you cleaned everything out of the can and the cap, ensuring that caps will stay a lot longer. Now, I know we all think, whatever, a cap is only 25, 50 cents or a whole bunch for a couple of bucks. But there's nothing worse than when you're at a spot, a cap clogs, and you don't have another one to keep going. One thing that's important to keep in mind is throughout these whole tutorial videos, I did not wear a mask, and that's because I was explaining to you step-by-step motions on how to do certain things. But what's very important is to have a mask. As we said earlier, wear gloves, but definitely the mask if you're painting indoors and even out. You don't want to have any sort of health problems or any sort of other problems that can arise unless you have a mask or some sort of filtering system, because fumes are very dangerous, they're highly toxic and highly filled with chemicals. So keep that in mind and invest in a good mask, and you'll thank me later. All of these tricks that we've just shown you are a couple of ways that can really help you use the resources, your surroundings, and the knowledge that we've given you so far out on the streets. These are only a couple. There are many more to figure out, and you'll find these out over time. But just go out there, have fun, keep this stuff in mind, and you remember that it's going to get a lot easier as you keep on practicing, keep on having fun, and keep on painting. Good luck.